Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. Some wounds run so deep you can't stitch them back together, no matter how hard you try. I learned that lesson the brutal way, and it's one I'll never forget. I used to think marriage meant two people building a life together, not agreeing on every little thing, maybe, but at least sharing a basic respect, a common goal. Turns out I was naive. So settle in, because this isn't just a story about getting stabbed in the back. It's about figuring out when to cut your losses and walk away for good. My name's Daniel. I didn't grow up with a trust fund or a golden ticket. Everything I've got, I clawed my way to earn. Late nights, skipped weekends, sacrifices most people wouldn't even dream of making. I started my company from nothing, a tiny operation in a rented garage in Portland, and turned it into something real. Success wasn't just about the money for me, though that came too. It was about laying down roots, building something solid I could pass on. I wanted a family, kids racing through the house, their laughter bouncing off the walls, a wife who'd stand by me through it all. That was the vision I carried, the one that kept me going. Then I met Lena. She walked into my life like a spark, vibrant, sharp, the kind of woman who could hold a room without trying. She had this easy confidence, a laugh that pulled you in, and we hit it off right away. Over coffee in Seattle, we'd talk for hours, the kind of conversations that make you lose track of time. There was a pull between us, something electric. I didn't waste time pretending otherwise. I knew I wanted her in my life. Early on, I laid it all out. I told her how much family meant to me, how I saw myself as a dad someday, how I wanted a home that felt alive. She didn't flinch. She'd smile, nod, let me paint that picture without ever pushing back. I took that as agreement. Looking back, I see she never actually said, "Yeah, I want that too." But when someone doesn't contradict you on something that big, you figure they're in. I figured wrong. We got married a year later, and for a while, it felt like everything I'd hoped for. Lena leaned into the life I'd built. The house in the hills, the trips to places like Banff or Santorini, the freedom that comes when money's not a worry. She loved it, no hesitation. I was already planning ahead, picking out schools for kids we didn't have yet, imagining holiday dinners with a full table. Meanwhile, Lena was soaking up the moment. No sign she was thinking past the next weekend. The first cracks didn't show up right away, but they were there, waiting to split wide open. It started after the honeymoon glow faded. I bring up kids, casual at first, just testing the waters. Before the wedding, she'd always smile when I talked about it, so I assumed we were still on track. But now, she'd dodge. "Why rush?" she'd say, or "Can we not do this right now?" If I pressed, she'd huff, like I was some nagging kid, and change the subject. Once, she even walked out of the room mid-sentence, leaving me staring at an empty doorway. I told myself it was nothing. She was just stressed, maybe not ready to dive in yet. But then the distance grew. The little things I loved about us started vanishing. No more spontaneous kisses while I cooked breakfast. No more brushing my arm when we passed in the hall. At night, she'd turn away, curling up on her side of the bed like I wasn't even there. I'd ask what was wrong, work? Me? Something else? She'd shrug it off. "I'm fine, just tired," or "It's been a long day." The excuses piled up, and I stopped asking. Months went by, and I felt like a ghost in my own home. Someone she'd talk to if she had to, but not someone she wanted near her. While I faded from her world, she built her own. Suddenly, she was gone all the time, weekend trips with friends I'd never met, people from her marketing job or some vague social circle. "Just a quick getaway," she'd say, tossing it out like it was nothing. I wasn't invited, not even as a courtesy. She'd come back with stories I didn't care to hear, glowing about places I hadn't seen, while I sat home wondering when we'd lost each other. She'd redecorate the house without asking. New art, new furniture, stuff I'd never have picked, or make big calls like switching jobs, all without a word to me. But the bills? Those still landed on my desk. She'd spend my money like it was hers, no pause, no guilt. I was footing the tab for a life she lived without me. It wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a charade, one where I gave everything, and she took it without looking back. I kept hoping she'd snap out of it, that we'd find our way back to the start. Then I found something that broke, that hope clean in two. I didn't see it all falling apart at first. You don't when you're in the thick of it. clinging to the idea that things can still be fixed. But the signs were there, piling up like unpaid bills, and I was just too stubborn or too blind to admit it. Lena wasn't just pulling away. She was rewriting our life into something I didn't recognize. And me? I was still playing the part of the husband, thinking effort and patience could bring her back. I was wrong. By then, we were living parallel lives under the same roof. I'd wake up early, grind through my day at the office in Portland, come home late, partly because work demanded it, partly because I didn't want to face the silence waiting for me. Lena, meanwhile, was off in her own orbit. She'd started traveling more, not just weekends but whole stretches. 5 days in Napa with colleagues, a week in Miami for some vague networking event. She'd pack her bags, toss me a half-hearted "see you soon," and vanish. I'd ask who she was going with, what the plan was, just trying to stay connected. She'd give me scraps, names I didn't know, details that didn't add up, then act like I was prying too much. "It's not a big deal, Daniel," she'd snap, and I'd back off, not wanting another fight. The house started feeling like a museum, cold, polished, full of things that didn't mean anything to me. She'd replaced half the furniture with stuff I hated, sleek, modern junk that looked like it belonged in a showroom, not a home. She dropped thousands on a whim, charging it all to my accounts, while I was still dreaming of a nursery instead of a leather sectional. I'd mention it once in a while, "Hey, maybe we should save for something bigger, like a family." And she'd laugh it off like I told a bad joke. "Relax, we've got time," she'd say, but her tone made it clear. She wasn't planning for anything beyond herself. The worst part wasn't the money or the trips. It was how she acted like I didn't matter. If I tried talking about us, about kids, about where we were headed, she'd shut it down fast. "Not now," she'd say, "or you're obsessed with this." Once, I pushed harder, asking why she kept dodging something I'd been upfront about from the start. She rolled her eyes, sighed like I was the problem, and said, "Can you stop making everything so serious?" That stung. Serious? This was my life. Our life, or so I'd thought. But to her, I was just background noise. The distance wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical, deliberate. She stopped touching me. No hugs, no brushing past me in the kitchen, nothing. At night, she'd slide into bed late, her back a wall between us. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering when I'd turned into a stranger. I asked her about it once, point blank. "Are you unhappy? Did I do something?" She barely looked up from her phone. "I'm fine, Daniel. You're overthinking it." But I wasn't. I could feel her slipping away, and every excuse she gave just twisted the knife deeper. Then she started living like she was single. She'd come home from her trips with new clothes, new jewelry, stuff I hadn't bought her, smelling faintly of perfume I didn't recognize. She'd talk about these friends I'd never met, laughing about inside jokes I wasn't part of. I'd ask to tag along sometime, just to bridge the gap, and she'd brush it off. "Oh, you wouldn't like it. It's not your thing." Not my thing. Being with my wife was my thing, or it used to be. She didn't even pretend to include me anymore. Meanwhile, my paycheck kept her world spinning. Her flights, her dinners, her little luxuries. I was funding a life I wasn't invited to. I kept telling myself it was a phase. Maybe she needed space, time to figure out what she wanted. I'd built my whole world around this marriage, and I wasn't ready to let it go. But then came the moment that shattered everything. It was a Tuesday night, raining hard outside. I was rummaging through a desk drawer in the study, looking for a charger cord. My fingers brushed something papery, tucked under a mess of old receipts and pens. I pulled it out, a folded sheet, creased like it had been shoved there in a hurry. I unfolded it, not expecting much, but my eyes caught the header, Cascade Women's Clinic. A medical report. My pulse kicked up as I scanned it. Words like procedure completed and post-operative care jumped out. Then the date, 3 weeks ago, and the details, a termination. Lena had been pregnant. My wife had been carrying our child, and she'd ended it. Without a word to me, I stood there, rain hammering the windows, the paper shaking in my hand. My brain couldn't catch up. Pregnant. My kid. Gone. She'd gone to a clinic, signed the forms, laying on a table, all while I was sitting at home, oblivious. How many nights had she smiled at me across the dinner table, Knowing? How many times had she dodged my questions about kids while hiding this? I flipped through every memory, every conversation, looking for a hint I'd missed. There wasn't one. She hadn't slipped, hadn't hesitated. She'd planned it, executed it, and kept me in the dark. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, one she'd made knowing full well what it'd do to me. I told her from day one how much I wanted to be a father, how I saw my future in a house full of kids. She nodded. Let me believe we were building that together. But she never wanted it. She just played along, stringing me through years of lies, taking what I offered while giving nothing back. I felt gutted, like a fool who'd been conned in plain sight. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, the paper crumpled on the table, waiting for her to come home. She'd been out, another work thing, she'd said. When the door finally clicked open, I didn't move. She walked in, coat dripping, and froze when she saw me. I held up the report, my voice barely steady. Why didn't you tell me? The air in the room felt thick when Lena walked in, her coat dripping onto the hardwood. She stopped short, eyes flicking from my face to the paper in my hand. I didn't give her time to dodge. Why didn't you tell me? My voice came out low, tight, like it was strangling itself. I held up the clinic report, the evidence of what she'd done trembling between my fingers. For a second, she didn't move, just stared, like she was calculating her next step. Then she shrugged, like I'd asked her why she'd forgotten to pick up milk. She tossed her bag on the counter, barely glancing at the paper. What's the big deal, Daniel? She said, her tone flat, annoyed. It's done. I didn't want it. I blinked, my mind scrambling to process that. It's done. She'd ended a pregnancy. Our pregnancy, my child, and she was acting like it was a canceled subscription. You didn't want it? I repeated, my voice cracking. This was us, Lena. This was ours. You didn't think I deserved to know? She sighed, loud and exaggerated, like I was wearing her out. Then she turned, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Look, I'm not your property. It's my body, my call. I don't owe you a debate about it. Her words hit like a slap, cold, sharp, final. No remorse, no flicker of doubt. Just her, standing there, daring me to argue. I stared at her, this woman I'd married, and felt something snap inside me. Your body, I said slowly, but my kid, my life. You knew what I wanted, what I've always wanted. You let me believe we were in this together. She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them, and I swear I saw red for a split second. Oh, come on, she said. You're so dramatic. I never promised you kids. You just assumed I'd go along with your little fantasy. That cut deeper than anything else. Fantasy? This wasn't some daydream I'd cooked up. I laid it out from the start. Family, kids, a real home. She'd smiled, nodded. Let me build a future in my head while she pocketed the benefits and planned her exit. You never said no, I shot back. You never once told me you didn't want it. You lied to me, every day for years. She smirked, a tiny, bitter twist of her lips. I didn't lie. You heard what you wanted to hear. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her feel even a fraction of the hurt tearing through me. But I didn't. I couldn't. If I lost it, she'd twist it, turn me into the bad guy, the irrational one. I'd seen her do it before, deflecting blame like it was a sport. So I stood there, fists clenched, forcing myself to breathe. You had an abortion, I said, each word heavy. You went behind my back, erased something we made, and you didn't even blink. How do you live with that? She didn't flinch. Easy, she said. I don't want kids. Never did. I'm not here to play house for you, Daniel. How about my own life? Her own life. Those words echoed, hollowing me out. All this time, I've been pouring myself into us, working, planning, sacrificing, while she'd been playing a solo game. I was just the bankroll, the safety net, the idiot who thought love meant something to her. I don't know how long we stood there, the rain drumming outside, the silence between us louder than anything else. My mind raced. Every moment I'd trusted her, every promise I'd thought we'd shared, crumbling into dust. She didn't care. She never had. And that truth hit harder than the betrayal itself. You used me, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. You took everything, my money, my time, my dreams, and you gave me nothing. She laughed, a short, Sharp sound that made my stomach turn. Oh, please. You got what you wanted too. A pretty wife, a nice life. Don't act like you're some martyr. That was it, the last straw. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. Something colder settled in me, a clarity I hadn't felt in months. She wasn't worth fighting for. She wasn't worth another second of my breath. Okay, I said, my voice steady now, almost too calm. You're right. Your body, your rules. She raised an eyebrow, like she'd won something, but I wasn't done. And this is my life. My rules. We're finished. Her smirk faltered, just for a second, but she covered it fast. Fine, she said. Do whatever you want. I don't care. She grabbed her bag and walked out of the room, leaving me with the crumpled paper and a decision I'd already made. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, replaying every lie, every dodge, every time I let her slide because I loved her. But love doesn't mean anything when it's one-sided. She'd made her choice, over and over, in every trip, every purchase, every secret she'd kept. Now it was my turn. I wasn't going to beg her to care. I wasn't going to drag this out in some messy showdown. I was going to leave, clean, quiet, and permanent. The next morning, I started planning. Divorce wasn't enough. Not the usual way, at least. If I filed in Oregon, she'd fight me tooth and nail, bleed me dry in court, maybe even walk away with half of everything I'd built. The system doesn't favor guys like me. It punishes us for trusting, for giving too much. I'd seen buddies go through it. Years of legal hell, alimony to exes who'd already taken their soul. No way was I letting Lena have that power. I had to be smarter, colder. I had to disappear. I called a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but the best I could find. A guy in Boise who specialized in high-stakes divorces, the kind where assets are a battlefield. We met that afternoon, and I laid it all out. The marriage, the betrayal, my need to get out clean. He didn't flinch. We can make this work, he said, but it's got to be airtight. She can't see it coming. That was the plan. I'd move fast, protect what was mine, and vanish before she knew what hit her. Once I decided to leave, there was no turning back. I wasn't just walking away from Lena. I was dismantling the life she'd hijacked, piece by piece, and making sure she couldn't touch what was left. Rage could have driven me to scream or smash something, but that's what she'd expect. Instead, I went cold, calculated. If she wanted to live her own life, fine. I'd give her exactly that, and take mine back in the process. My lawyer, Tom, was a shark in a suit. We met in a nondescript Boise office, far from Portland's prying eyes, and mapped it out. You've got a solid case, he said, flipping through my financials. But she'll play dirty if she gets wind of this. We need speed and silence. I nodded. I built my business from scratch, every contract, every late night, and I wasn't about to let her walk off with half just because she'd worn my ring. Tom knew the game. File an estate with short residency rules, shield my assets, and cut her off before she could lawyer up. Idaho was our pick. Faster courts, less sympathy for freeloaders. First, we secured my money. I've been naive, leaving joint accounts wide open, but not anymore. Tom guided me through setting up trusts, legal fortresses Lena couldn't crack. My business profits, my investments, even the house equity. I moved it all, step by step, into protected entities. The joint accounts got frozen, not drained, just locked tight, so she couldn't siphon a dime. She'd notice eventually, but by then, it'd be too late. She'll have to fight with her own cash, Tom said, grinning. And I'm betting she doesn't have much. Next, the logistics. Lena had a trip coming up, 5 days in Santa Fe with her latest pack of friends. Perfect timing. I watched her pack, same as always. No goodbye kiss, just a tossed-off back Monday as she breezed out the door. The second her car pulled away, I moved. Movers rolled in, quiet guys I'd hired through Tom's contacts. They boxed my clothes, my files, anything that mattered. No furniture, no sentimental junk, just what was mine. By noon, the house looked half empty, but I didn't care. She could keep her overpriced decor. I wasn't coming back for it. I shut down my old life like flipping a switch. Social media? Gone. Personal phone? New number unlisted. My business line stayed active, rerouted through a virtual assistant who'd screen every call. I didn't tell friends. They'd ask questions, and I wasn't ready for that. The fewer people who knew, the better. Tom filed the divorce papers that afternoon, time-stamped in Boise. By law, she'd be served when she got back, but I wouldn't be there to see her face. I was already on a plane to Salt Lake City. New city, new start, no trace. The house in Portland? I'd bought it before we married, so it was mine on paper. Tom had a plan for that, too. Put in a trust, lease it out, keep the income untouchable. Lena could stay there until the divorce settled, but she'd be on borrowed time. No more credit cards linked to me. No more bankrolling her trips. She'd have to figure out how to pay her own way, something I doubted she'd ever done. The thought of her scrambling almost made me smile. Almost. I was too tired for satisfaction yet. By Sunday night, I was in a furnished rental in Salt Lake, staring out of the Wasatch Mountains. My stuff was in storage, my accounts locked, my tracks covered. Tom called to confirm. Papers are ready. She'll get them tomorrow. She can't touch a thing. Legally, you're a ghost. I exhaled, the first real breath I'd taken in days. Good, I said. Let her figure it out. He chuckled. She'll be pissed. Might try to sue. I shrugged, though he couldn't see it. Let her try. I'm done playing her game. I pictured her coming home, suitcase dragging, expecting the usual setup. Me at the table, bills paid, life humming along on my dime. Instead, she'd find an empty house, a stack of legal papers, and a bank account that wouldn't budge. No note, no explanation. Why bother? She'd made her choices. Now she'd live with them. If she called, she'd hit a dead end. If she tracked me, she'd find nothing. I wasn't hiding, I was gone. Tom had prepped for every angle. If she contested the divorce, he'd bury her in paperwork. Counterclaims about her spending, her secrecy, her refusal to build a marriage. She'd need money to fight, and without my backing, her options were thin. Her friends, I'd bet they'd vanish once the free rides dried up. People like that don't stick around when the gravy train stops. She could scream, cry, play the victim. It wouldn't change a thing. The law was on my side, and I made sure of it. That night, I slept hard. No dreams, no regrets. I'd spent years giving Lena everything. My trust, my loyalty, my future. She'd taken it all, tossed it aside like trash. Now she had nothing from me. Not a dollar, not a word. I'd given her what she wanted, her life, her rules. And I'd taken what I needed, my freedom. The next day, I started rebuilding, and for the first time in years, it felt like mine. The first morning in Salt Lake City hit different. I woke up to sunlight spilling over the mountains, no weight on my chest, no dread about what I'd face at home. The rental was sparse, just a bed, a couch, a coffee maker, but it was mine. No trace of Lena's expensive clutter, no echo of her indifference. For the first time in years, I felt light. I'd pulled off the impossible, escaped a marriage that was suffocating me, protected what I'd built, and left her with nothing to take. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. The days after were quiet, deliberate. I threw myself into work. My company could run remotely, and I had a team I trusted. I expanded into new markets, poured energy into projects I neglected while trying to hold a failing marriage together. Money started flowing again, but this time it was for me, not her trips, not her whims. I hit the gym, ran trails along the foothills, ate what I wanted without her judging glances. I reconnected with old friends, guys I'd lost touch with while chasing her approval. They didn't ask about the divorce. I didn't offer. It was enough to just be myself again. Tom kept me posted. Lena got the papers that Monday, right on cue. He said she'd called his office, furious, demanding to know where I was. He stonewalled her, client confidentiality, no forwarding address. She tried the bank next, but the accounts were locked tighter than a vault. No cash, no leverage. She could have hired a lawyer, but with what? Her marketing gig barely covered her phone bill without my help. Tom figured she'd give up, too proud to beg, too broke to fight. She's got no play here, he said. You're clear. I nodded into the phone, staring out at the skyline. Clear. That's what I'd wanted all along. I didn't wonder much about her. Maybe she stayed in the Portland house, scrambling to pay rent once the trust took over. Maybe she leaned on her friends, though I'd bet they scattered when the perks dried up. People like that don't linger when there's nothing to gain. Did she rebuild? Crash? I didn't care. She wasn't my problem anymore. She wanted her body, her rules. Well, she got it. And I got my life back. That was the deal. Starting over wasn't seamless. There were nights I'd catch myself replaying it all. Her smirk, her lies, that damn clinic report. I'd trusted her, built a future around her, and she'd torched it without a second thought. It stung, knowing I'd been played so long. But regret? None. Leaving was the sanest thing I'd done. I used to think love meant sticking it out, sacrificing, fixing what's broken no matter the cost. Now I know better. Love's a two-way street. If it's just you giving, it's not love. It's a trap. I could have handled it differently, sure. Confronted her longer, demanded answers, fought it out in court like some noble stand. But why? She'd made her stance clear. Her life, her way, me be damned. Dragging it out would have just fed her ego, cost me more, time, money, peace. Disappearing was cleaner, smarter. I didn't owe her a showdown. I owed myself a fresh start. So I took it, no apologies. Here's what I learned. If someone takes you for granted, if they treat your dreams like background noise, don't waste your breath arguing. Walk away. Cut the cord clean and don't look back. I gave Lena everything, my heart, my hustle, my hope, and she used it like a doormat. She never saw me as a partner, just a means to an end. When I realized that, staying wasn't noble, it was stupid. So I made my own rules, my life, my freedom. She'd never get another shot to bleed me dry. What do you think? Too harsh, too extreme, vanishing like that? Maybe you'd have stayed, hashed it out, tried to salvage something from the wreckage. Or maybe you get it. Why fight for a marriage that was dead the minute she stopped caring? If you were me, married to someone who dismissed you, erased your future without a word, what would you do? Stick around, hoping they'd change? Or bolt, like I did, and build something new? I'm curious. Hit me with your take. This story's not just mine. It's for anyone stuck in a one-sided deal, feeling like an afterthought in their own life. If it resonates, if it lights a spark, or makes you rethink what you're putting up with, share it. Pass it to someone who needs a nudge to see their worth. Betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define you. I walked away, and I'm better for it. No more broken promises, no more being used. Just me, my choices, and a peace I hadn't felt in years. That's what freedom tastes like.